Welcome to Fables Untold, where we unlock hidden growth stories from around the world. I'm your host, Vikas, and together we are diving into a world of insights and growth hacks to fuel your success. In today's episode, we have a SaaS veteran and a wonderful person at heart, Erdem. Erdem is the co founder and CEO of Flowla, a product that helps sellers keep their buyers engaged from initial discovery call until closing. A product guy at heart, Erdem loves solving critical problems in the B2B world. Welcome to the show, Erdem. Super excited to have you with us today.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you for having me. Super excited as well.
Awesome. All right, then, shed some light. What exactly is buyer enablement, and why do you think it's becoming more important with every passing day?
I think we're going to be hearing more and more buyer enablement. Like we have already started. Sales enablement was there for a very long time. But now, like when the competition is at its highest, and that means like your buyers, if they're talking to you, they're talking to your competition, they have endless options. And making it easy for them to buy from you is actually the key to winning that deal. Like even imagine for yourself, like if you were to move your house and if you get a couple of offers from a couple of movers, you'll be looking for some credibility, you'll be looking for some transparency. You want to make sure you know the next steps. There's nothing hidden, no hidden costs and everything. And that's what buyers are expecting in the B2B sales world as well. And that's what buyer enablement is all about. Giving this to buyers so that like they can actually achieve their goals and you can actually hit your quota.
Interesting. So tell me more. How exactly, do products like digital sales rooms help sellers in achieving, the entire process that you're talking about?
I'm glad you brought up digital sales rooms. Like, let's talk about what they are. A digital sales room is a custom branded link that a salesperson sends to their buyer group. This could be during the closing process or even during an outreach or after the closing to onboard that client. It's basically a custom branded shareable link that holds all sales materials, action plans. I don't know, like think of anything you share with your buyers throughout the sales process. Could be your calendar link, could be a sales deck, and could be an interactive demo. Like you know it better than I do. But anything can actually live inside a digital sales room. And the goal is to remove friction for the buyers by unifying everything in a link and facilitating decision making. Because you want to give buyers the opportunity to buy in their own terms, make everything accessible, make everything easily shared, and bring everyone on the same page and show next steps, show who is blocking the process, and show action items that belong to each and every stakeholder.
Awesome. That sounds interesting. So, based on what you said, does this mean everybody from an SDR to an account executive can use digital sales room? Is that correct?
Can and should. And I'd also add customer success managers. So, like our three primary use cases would be like cold outreach, and this will be done by SDRs, for closing deals by account executives, and onboarding clients and managing customers by customer success or account management teams. All these three revenue team groups can actually benefit a lot from using digital sales rooms.
That's interesting. You briefly touched upon interactive demos, right? So I think that's a problem statement very close to my heart as well. So do you think they play an important role in buyer enablement today?
Well, I'll be very bad to answer this question with you on this chat as well. But let me tell you what we see our users do. So interactive demos give people to discover your product on their own terms. So when you're giving them a demo, you have to be sync, you have to be on a Zoom call with them, and like they have to follow your lead if you're like a person that wants to tell a lot of stories. But interactive demos give them the chance to discover on their own when they want it, when they're curious about it, and see what they're curious about. And not just for one stakeholder, but building a demo for like multiple stakeholders for all of them, and anyone can actually get something different from that demo. And including this in a digital sales room exactly fits the purpose of what a digital sales room offers both the seller and the buyer. So yeah, this is what we see, and this is something that works.
Awesome. That's super interesting, right? You talk a lot about how people should start, using digital sales rooms, right? Outside of this, what are the other common mistakes you see sellers making when they try to keep their prospects engaged?
One of the first features that we built when we were building Flowla was personalization, which is done instantly. We pull your like clients' logos, brand colors, and even like after we incorporated some AI inside the product as well, we could even like create a short discovery sentence or some introductory text and as well. So the primary mistake I'd say would be not personalizing it, not just the digital sales room, but also like your communication to different stakeholders as well. Like we were on a call with a buyer group. I think this was last week, and in that call there was the CRO, there was the VP of sales, there was the RevOps director, and the head of outbound sales. And these four people, they all had different goals. Like the CRO started that conversation by saying, "This wasn't a budgeted item." So yeah, he's looking for an affordable solution. He wants to just make sure his budget is not hurt. The VP of sales was just talking about avoiding risk. So they were comparing Flowla to a different vendor, which is like a legacy solution, has been there for 10 years. So the correct thing that we did was communicating and personalizing our value propositions for each stakeholder, because they all expect different things. This holds true for digital sales rooms, this holds true for your follow-ups, and this holds true for your conversation in a Zoom chat. That's like what I would highlight as the primary things of improvement that we see commonly.
Super interesting. Super interesting. I think, would love to sort of jump and know a little bit about your background and how you started with Flowla, right? So, how exactly did Flowla happen? What inspired you to choose sales tech? So, I think we'd love to know the story.
Yeah, like this is something I love to talk about. So please cut me out if I just go long about it. But long story short, my previous, my previous company, we were building a sales solution as well. We actually started as a marketplace, and that resold B2B deals. So we were targeting the SMB segment, which no one did, which was a great thing. But we had to build a solution that speeded up our sales processes, that made our processes efficient, and that made our business kind of like profitable, right? So we built this solution for ourselves that unified the proposal, the contract filling experience, and the e-signature in just one link. And that one link was synced to Salesforce so that the salesperson could just send it to their buyers, and they could do whole the procurement process in that link. Seeing how like unifying the process in a link creates wonders, makes our business profitable. We said, okay, like after we sold that business, which was a great achievement, we said, okay, this is time we do this with a more scalable approach, and that's how Flowla was born.
Awesome. That's a beautiful story. And congrats again on the acquisition. I think not a lot of people talk about, the wins that lead you to what you're doing today. Obviously the wins and losses are equally important, but having seen a successful acquisition, I'm sure that it gives you double the amount of energy to be able to do something big with Flowla. So all the best to you and your team at Flowla on this current journey.
Thank you, Vikas. That's very good to hear this from you. Yeah. And yeah, of course, like having done this before and having kind of a safety net to try this again, I think it's the key to dreaming big, achieving big, and taking risks, the right risks at the right time.
Awesome. Now that you've already been in sales tech for quite some time, what advice would you give for other founders starting up in the same space today?
Oh wow. Like if this is a question specifically for sales tech founders, I'll just go with what we hear the most, and that's isn't sales tech a very crowded space? I'm sure you're getting this a lot, like at Fable as well. So, like, for if you're gonna build a sales tech product, you have to make sure that you have a unique solution to a very unique and valid problem. You have to be problem driven, not solution driven. Like, I really like this phrase by Michael Siebel. He is a partner at YC. He says like, if you're building a solution in search of a problem, and not just a solution that's directed built to solve a specific problem, that you're at a great risk. So, and I think if you're going to win in sales tech, you have to have it start with a very specific problem, and you have to have a very unique approach to solving that problem.
Awesome. That's interesting. So maybe a little further, now that we've started up in sales tech, we're very sure of what we're building. We're clear with the niche. How do you go about finding your first few customers in an extremely competitive market today and in a crowded space?
Like, I think I had an unfair advantage here because my expertise is not sales. I'm a product guy. I did product management for companies I co-founded. So I like to treat all conversations as product interviews, user interviews, or customer development calls, whatever you call them, not just like sales calls. So I just ask for advice, and like you'll be surprised. People love giving advice. People love their ideas being heard. And if you somehow can succeed in turning those problems into actionable products, actionable features, not at that time, but maybe like a couple of months later, then you hook those people. So our initial set of users were people I did user interviews with before we even started building Flowla. They were salespeople, they were sales reps and leaders, and like we had very fruitful conversations. And I don't look for individual remarks, but I look for patterns. So when patterns start to show, I say, okay, this is the direction we need to go. And when you build towards that direction, you just follow up to those people and say, guys, like here we have our product, and this mirrors what we covered. You want to see it? And like, if they feel like their thoughts, comments, their problems were taken into consideration, they're really likely to give that product a try. And that's what happened with Flowla.
Awesome. I think that's a wealth of insight out there, not just for us, but for a lot of other founders who are working, to get their first 50, 100 customers. So I think that's extremely helpful. And like you said, the aspect of you looking at things from a product lens makes it a lot more fruitful because you're in the conversation every single time. You want to go deep into why that problem is coming in and how you can solve it. Not just how your product can solve it, but how can the problem be solved. So I think that's extremely interesting and really nice feedback.
Like if you use this mindset when hopping on that call, you don't lose that call. If you hop on with a sales mindset, and if that call doesn't go as you expected, you come out and say, I couldn't do it. But if you jump on that call with a product mindset, you say, that was great. Like I have great insights. And your goal is not closing, your goal is not winning, and that gives comfort to the person you're speaking with. So many advantages.
Yep, I think that's a solid plan. Definitely something that I'd like to try in the coming days for sure. Awesome. So I think it's time to sort of jump in to a fun section as a part of our podcast. What I would like to call as rapid fire. So we'd have 4 to 5 questions just to know a little bit more about how you're thinking and who do you follow. It's also going to be helpful for a lot of our viewers, right? So we'd start this section. All of us, Erdem, have hidden talents and quirks. What's something about you that most people do not know?
Oh wow. Like if you know me in a work context, you probably don't know that I love food. Like I love taste in general. I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to be cooked for, but that's a separate conversation. But yeah, like I actually think like owning a restaurant and building like a SaaS product have a lot more in common than you might think. Because at the end of the day, it's a business of hospitality. It's a business of like making people feel happy about their decisions, giving them a good experience. So like cooking and being interested in taste and observing how good restaurants became good restaurants, I think it taught me a great deal about building a company.
Awesome. Is there a secret restaurant in Turkey that we need to know about?
I'll send you a Google Maps list, not just one. There are many. There are plenty.
Awesome, man. I mean, that's super interesting. When I love my own food, and especially when the point where you raised about you love being cooked for, I think that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, you can just enjoy, relax, get the ambience, and then enjoy your food.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of us out there are looking for such experiences. Awesome. I mean, there are a lot of other great podcasts out there, or them, right? I'm sure you're following a few. You listen to a few of them, regularly, right? Which one amongst all is your absolute favorite, and why do you think so?
If you're looking for the one, that's a very hard question. But yeah, I listen to a bunch of business podcasts. But if I were to pick just one, I'll go with a podcast called Freakonomics, and that has been there for ages. And that's not just a business podcast. It talks about pretty much anything. Like in one episode, you could hear why museums should return the stolen art. In another episode, you could just talk about AI, and in another episode, that could be something entirely different. I really enjoy it because it helps like widen my perspective. Because if not, I'll just spend the whole day reading tech stuff, building tech stuff, talking to tech users. So yeah, this podcast kind of enlightens my mornings, and I genuinely enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot about Freakonomics and the kind of podcasts that come out, like you said, hovering around a range of topics, all of them
Hmm.
very interesting, thought
Yeah,
provoking, and insightful. I think it's again a reminder for me to go back and check out some of the episodes that have not been following for quite some time. Thank you for sharing that, Erdem.
yeah, my pleasure.
Right, and moving on to talk about a little bit, in the sales world, right? What's something that you're really excited about in the world of sales today?
You would expect me to say AI, but I'm not gonna go for that. Um, I think
That was, yeah,
like like I see a trend of consolidation, and it's just not in sales tech, but it's everywhere. And I really like this trend for a couple of reasons. One, like when you're building a product, it helps you adopt an end-to-end approach as a founder. It reduces complexity for both the buyers of solutions and the sellers of solutions, because like having a different tool that does one job very well, it kind of can get frustrating and very complex when you start to have 10 different sauces to solve the same process. So I think this trend of consolidation is going to help companies become more effective, and it's going to help new startups focus on solving problems actually that delivers tangible value, not just building fancy stuff that looks good and that could just tip the scale a little bit. So yeah, I say consolidation, and in Flowla we're huge fans of consolidation as well.
awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Right, we talk about Flowla, so just want to go back in time when you had actually started Flowla about a year or so back. If you could really go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting out Flowla, what would that be and why?
I wouldn't have to go back a lot because like Flowla is like a little more than a year old now. But if I were in a
Yeah.
conversation with my last year self, like the thing with Flowla is like it's a digital sales room. You can put anything in a flow, so there's a danger of being everything for everyone. Like you can actually use a flow to onboard a
Mhm.
new hire, because you just throw in a bunch of onboarding materials, a video from the founder, and everything. But you can also use it for closing deals, for any other use cases. So what I've
Yeah.
seen that worked good over the past year is finding super specific use cases and talking about those use cases when we're talking with a potential client, because people want to visualize themselves using Flowla, and unless you help them visualize that process, unless you say, oh, this is how I use Flowla, this is what I do, and this works, doing this kind of helps them
Sure.
internalize that solution and focus on that use case and focus on what they can win when solving that use case. So yeah, don't try to tackle lots of use cases. Don't try to be everything for everyone, but just go one by one. That's what I would recommend myself.
Awesome. That's solid feedback, and sort of sits in line with similar experiences that we have had at Fable. Obviously, Fable is still not a year old. We are much earlier in the journey than you folks. But I think what you're saying sort of resonates with me in that context, right? Because when we started Fable, we said we are going to help you create demos across the spectrum. I mean, you be it customer success, you are an SDR, you're an AE, or marketing, doesn't really matter. But then the more and more we saw some sort of repeatability, we felt the need to not just stick to one or two of these problems, but also make sure we change the positioning so people really understand that, okay, fine, there might be two or three other folks who are doing what Fable is doing, but Fable does one thing 100 times better than a couple of others out there. And that is the one thing that I'm looking for today, right? And the moment you do that, I think rest all falls into place. Your ICP is more clearer, your positioning is more crisper. You don't really have to beat around the bush to tell what you're doing. So yeah, I think thank you so much for actually raising that point. And I'm sure that a lot of people viewing this would like to double down on this aspect if they've not done already.
It's my pleasure, Vikas.
Cool. So I think now that we've spoken about a lot of these, spend some time answering some interesting questions, just want to stop or come to an end with one last question that I have in mind. Right. I mean, a lot of us in B2B SaaS today look up to a few folks who are other veterans in the space or influencers, so to speak. Right. From your end, do you regularly or have a disciplined approach in following a couple of these influencers to stay on top of the industry? If yes, can you share some recommendations for our viewers?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Like, I can't be completely impartial in this, but I love the content my co-founder Alper shares. Like, he's an experienced sales leader, and like he's been putting a lot of stuff out there, sharing his experiences. But if I were to look outside, there are a couple of names that we've been in touch with and we really look up to. I think one is Jakko. He's like Jakko van der Koij. Like he also has a book, like The Science of SaaS Sales, and like you should definitely give that book a try. And I know a lot of founders that built sales systems reading his books. And we were introduced by one of our investors, and I think he's doing a great job. And like if I were to add to this, of course, like Kyle Coleman of Clary is always a go-to person. You should definitely check out his work. We definitely do, and we definitely learn from him. I think the list could go forever, but yeah, this would be my top 3 names.
Awesome, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I obviously love what your team is doing, and I think, like you mentioned, Kyle Coleman is a no-brainer for everybody who's in sales GTM. His mini nuggets that come in where it talks about what's right, what's wrong. I think the best part, at least in his content, is it's super easy to consume. Right, does not take a lot of time for you to get to the meat of what he's trying to say. Unlike a lot of folks who try to create a long article for you to spend some time, and it takes a lot of effort for you to get to the meat of the content. So that's something that I really, really like about what Kyle's trying to do there. So thank you again for sharing it. For our viewers, if you're not following Kyle already, please do so. And with that, I think that's a wrap. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Erdem, for making this episode an absolute blast. And to all our viewers, until next time, keep growing, keep thriving, and all the best with what you're doing in the B2B SaaS world. This is Fables Untold with your host Vikas. Thank you for joining us, and do remember that your growth story is just beginning. Take care, folks.